Hit it.
Welcome to the Test Talks podcast, the place to go to geek out on software testing. And now your host, whose mission is to help you succeed with test automation, Joe Colantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of Test Talks. Today we're going to be talking all about Catalan Studio. So finding the right test tool from all the available automation tools that are out there is really tough. I've interviewed over 200 testers and developers on Test Talks, and based on that treasure trove of automation awesomeness, I actually created a resource called the Ultimate Testing Tools List. You can get it at guild.show/tools. But since publishing it, I've gotten a bunch of comments asking why I didn't include Catalan Studio on that list. And the main reason why was that this list was based on just tools that folks on Test Talks had mentioned. So what I did is I got out and I found an expert, and I'm lucky I found Raghav Pal, who is an awesome automation test tools expert. He has a really cool YouTube channel called Automation Step by Step. And he publishes pretty much weekly really detailed videos on all kinds of different automation tools and techniques. So you definitely want to check that out. And so that's what today's episode is all about, Catalan Studio. And just so you know, for the lucky folks that are able to listen to this early in the week, you still have time to register for the AI Summit Guild, a one-day online conference dedicated 100% to AI test automation. We brought together some of the biggest vendors in the AI automation space, as well as some of the biggest thought leaders and hands-on practitioners that have actually started testing machine learning, AI-based technologies. And I'm really excited about this lineup. We have Tariq King, who's doing the keynote on a vision of self-testing systems. We have Dan Belcher from Mabel, which is one of the newer AI-based automation test tools out there, on how your career is going to change in the era of intelligent QA. We have, of course, the famous and great Angie Jones. Anything Angie does is awesome, and she does not disappoint. She does a great session on show and tell, explain machine learning to me like I'm 5. We have Jason Arbin from Test AI. He also was one of the co-authors of How Google Tests Software. He's doing a session on AI for user flow verification. We have Jeff Meyer from Dell on a testing journey in the age of smart assistants. And Oren Rubin from Testum, which is also a newer, popular AI-based automation tool, going over using AI to solve the quality velocity dilemma. And on top of it all, we have an end-of-day roundtable with 3 experts I handpicked to tackle any of your questions around AI automation. And I think we have a really great mix here. We have Adam Carmi, who is the co-founder and CTO at Applitools. This was one of the first tools I ever tried that was a little outside my comfort zone, that was using more machine learning-based technology that I didn't believe until I saw it. And once I saw it, I was hooked. This actually paved the way for what I think is going to be an AI automation test tool revolution. Also, Nomi Ferreira will be joining us, the Testing Links. She has awesome experience around actually testing AI, ML, machine learning type algorithms. And also we have Jonathan Wright, who is an automation cyborg set from the future to show us all the things possible that he sees with AI machine learning automation. So I'm pretty confident that any question you might have around AI automation, this roundtable can handle your question. Don't miss it. You don't want to miss the live event. Head on over to AISummitGuild.com and register today. Time literally is running out if you're listening to this on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, because this happens on May 30th. Test Talks is sponsored by the fantastic folks at Source Labs, the cloud-based automated testing platform that eliminates the need to maintain your own Selenium grid and test infrastructure. Try it for free today. Visit testtalks.com and click on the Sign Up Now link under the homepage sponsor section. Hey, Raghav, welcome to Test Talks.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me here.
It's great to have you on the show. This is actually a topic I've been wanting to get a speaker for a while, and you were cool enough to say you would handle it and come on the show. So I'd like to talk a little bit about test automation using Katalon Studio. But before we get into it, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure, Joe. Absolutely. So I started in the software and IT industry about 9 years ago, and I started as a Java developer. And due to some business requirements in the organization, I moved into testing. I tried my hands on manual testing for a while and then finally moved into automation testing. So I got really fascinated about the topic, and when I saw these tools and libraries that can be used by some quick scripting, and they can do a lot of things, and we can actually automate a lot of manual testing. I got really interested in this topic and the subject, and I tried to explore as much as I can. So I started with the front end web applications using Selenium and similar tools. Then I moved into API and web services automation. I used SOAP UI and Postman for API and web services testing. Then I moved into performance, and I used JMeter a lot for web services, for websites, and similar applications. Then I got a chance to work with CI, and I used Jenkins a lot. So I actually used all these tools and got a lot of experience with testing, DevOps, and CI and automation. After some time, when I had all these tools and experiences and automation testing knowledge, I felt that there was a need to share all this knowledge and hand over this knowledge to a lot of people who are who need some very basic, simple, step-by-step guides to get started. So that was when I started my YouTube channel, and it's called Automation Step by Step. So that was about 2 years ago from now when I started the channel, and I post like very basic step-by-step videos on topics related to automation, testing, DevOps, and CI. I also have a website called automationstepbystep.com, and it's live, but there are some of the sections which are still under construction. So I'm currently working on that. So all the sections will be live about a month from now. And apart from that, I also write a blog. It's a general motivation blog called lifecharger.org. So whenever I get some free time, I write some articles there, and some of my viewers and subscribers really like reading them. So that's all about me, Joe.
Awesome. I'd like to dive into a few of the points you brought up with your experience. The first is you started off as a Java developer. And I guess what got you into automation? I have a hard time sometimes getting developers to even be interested in any sort of automated testing, even unit testing.
So in my case, it was like an organization requirement. There was some big requirements into testing, and a lot of people from the developer background were moved into testing, and that is how I came to testing. But yes, what you are saying is correct. There are a lot of, there are challenges in having a developer move into automation testing. So I believe, what the current trend is, we have a role called SDET, which is Software Development Engineer in Test. And I think what we have seen is, I have personally seen is, that kind of a role really attracts developers, and we don't call them testers. We call them, software development engineers in test. And if we talk about today's scenario, and if we talk about automation, it's a lot to do with, programming skills, coding skills, and we really need good developers. So I always believe that a good developer makes a really good automation engineer.
So I agree. I guess my experience working for a large company, I find it very hard to find people with that skill set, that they have developing skills and they want to do automation and they know how to test. So a lot of times the tools we've selected have been developer centric, and yet developers aren't utilizing them. So I'm just curious to know, like with Selenium, you usually have to do a lot of programming yourself using the API and using a developer language. Is that what got you into Catalan Studio? Like what made you change from more I think of a developer centric testing approach to a more, I think, user-friendly approach using a tool like Catalan Studio?
So it was about a year ago, and somebody on my YouTube channel sent me a message to check out this tool called Katalon Studio, and create some very basic tutorials on that. And I didn't know about this tool, and I've never heard the name of Katalon Studio prior to that. So it was a very busy day for me. So I was kind of ignored that message. I said, okay, I will do it, but I did not look into what exactly this is. Then on one of the weekends, I had some time and I was going through my earlier messages on my YouTube channel, and I came across this message again, and I said, okay, let me give it a look and let me see what it is actually. So I went on the website of Catalan Studio and I downloaded the tool. I looked at some of the documentation and I start, exploring the tool. Very soon I figured out that this is a great tool, particularly for people who have very less programming background or coding background. And that was a time where a lot of people were, sending me messages and asking about, I do not have a programming background. I do not have no coding. How should I start my career in test automation? So that was a point. I feel that this tool can be a great it can be really useful for people like these, and I decided that I will make some videos on this so that it at least my subscribers can see it, and then they can start with test automation, particularly people who do not have a lot of programming background. And during that time, this tool was very new, so uh, there was not at all much documentation and mention about this tool on any other websites or on YouTube. So I went through the entire documentation which was available on Catalan Studio's website, and it was like really, really useful. It was very clean and very well organized documentation, and the user guides were very good. And I was very quickly able to create all these sessions, and then a lot of people liked it. And if I see today, you will find a mention about Catalan Studio on almost every popular website, and you will find a lot of tutorials about it.
So I guess I should start off with this question. At a high level, what is Catalan Studio? Is it a vendor tool? Is it open source?
Yeah, so Catalan Studio is a free automation testing tool by KMS Technologies. It is not open source, but yeah, it is free. And this tool can be used to do test automation on front-end web applications, on mobile, and on web services. The great thing about this tool is it's a complete package and it's a complete framework. So you do not have to download or install any other components when you are working with Catalan Studio. You just have to download the Catalan Studio, which comes as a zip package, and then you unzip it and start the executor, and you have a very clean and good looking GUI that you can use to start creating automation test. And the great thing about this tool is the learning curve is very small and you do not need any programming background. So people with no coding experience can just, download it and start within 10 minutes, and they can start creating automation test cases.
How are they able to create automation without coding, which I think is probably a bad practice long term, but if they're just getting started, I could see them using a recorder. But what's it using behind the scenes? Is it a programming language? Is it using Selenium? How does that work?
So Catalan Studio uses Selenium and APM libraries behind the scenes. And what they have done is they have created a very clean and good looking GUI and wrappers over these libraries. And they have multiple ways of creating a test case. So using the Catalan Studio tool, you can do a recording, and then once you have recorded your test case, there are several options by which you can modify and then make your test cases ready. You can also create a test case in a manual mode, so where you select the actions and you select the data and keep on adding rows to create a test case. There is also a scripting mode where you can use Java and Groovy. So that is a great part, because anything, if you do not find an existing keyword within Catalan Studio, you can create a custom keyword. So you can use custom keywords and use Java or Groovy to create all these special keywords. And you can also add the external jars to Catalan Studio. So in case you have some Java program written separately and you want to use it here in Catalan Studio, you can do that as well. And then there are features like you can do parallel testing with multiple browsers. We can also do remote testing by going to remote service providers like Sauce Labs or BrowserStack. And then there is integrations with Jira, Jenkins, and test management tools. So this is like very interactive.
Cool. So it sounds like it uses a keyword-driven approach, which has been around for a while. One concern that comes up is, say someone has a lot of tests, say 500 tests, and there's a change to one of the test scripts. Usually, when you're using like Selenium, you can create a page object. So if anything changes, you go to that one location. If someone's using this tool and they're just creating scripts randomly using keywords, how do they make their tests maintainable?
That's a very good question, Joe. So in Catalan Studio, we use some similar kind of approach. So when we create objects, there is an object repository, and there are options where you can classify your objects into different pages, and you can actually create different folders. Now it's up to the user how exactly he wants to classify these folders, maybe based on per test case or maybe per page on the website. So it will be like saved separately and classified into an object repository. So whenever there is any change in some of the objects, you do not have to go to the entire test case and change the things. It's like you can go to that particular page's object repository and then make the modifications there. So it's kind of the same as page object model that we use outside these tools.
Cool. So I don't know how familiar you are with vendor tools like Quick Test Professional, Unified Functional Testing, but it sounds like that type of same approach for people that haven't seen Katalon Studio before.
Yeah, actually, it uses a similar kind of approach when it comes to object repository. People who have used QTP or UFT will find it like very familiar. Plus, the GUI is built over Eclipse SDK. So they have actually used Eclipse SDK and built the GUI over there. So people who have worked with Eclipse will find it very familiar while working with Katalon Studio.
Another thing that would come up when someone uses Selenium wrapped in something else, a lot of times there's extra benefits to it. And you've mentioned a few of them already. But one of them is synchronization. When you're interacting with an object or an element, a lot of times you get synchronization issues. And sometimes these types of tools handle extra things behind the scenes so you don't have to worry about that. Does Catalan Studio do any sort of functionality like that?
Yes, there are a lot of features, inbuilt features in this tool. And even if you are working with some applications built over, let's say, Angular or AngularJS technologies, they have some libraries and keywords separately for them, and there are keywords like wait for Angular load and things like that. So it's like very interactive. I think working with any of the front-end web applications should be pretty easy working with Catalan Studio. There are a lot of inbuilt keywords that we can directly use, and just in case anything custom is required, there's always the possibility to add custom keywords here.
Awesome. So I think another interesting use case that you brought up and that a lot of people struggle with is API testing. So a lot of times with Selenium, they have to get a third-party library that handles interacting with REST services and web services. But it sounds like this has API functionality built into it. It sounds like you've used the API functionality. How does it compare to, say, JMeter or a tool that was made for API testing specifically?
That's a great question, Joe. So yes, Catalan Studio has this functionality of web services testing, and we can test REST or SOAP web services with this tool. However, I believe that there is a lot of improvements required there. When I use tools like JMeter, or I have used Postman as well, I think for API testing in specific, these tools are much better as of now. And I think Catalan Studio needs to improve a lot of things on the API front.
So I guess what people might get hung up on is it's not open source, but it's free. Do you know what that model means to people that want to implement this? Could they actually charge for it at some point, and then you're kind of stuck into purchasing it because you have your test strategy built around this tool?
Yeah, sure. So Joe, let me first just explain about free and open source. So whenever we see a free tool, that means it's available free of cost to use it. However, you will not be able to get the source code of the tool. So for example, you will not be get into the codes or into the configurations of the tool, and you cannot actually go and change the underlying codes in the tool. But yes, you can use it free of cost. When we talk about open source, that means people have access to the source code of the tool or of the library, and people can actually work on it, modify it, or add or do any kind of changes there. So Catalan Studio is not open source, but it is free. And the next part that you said was, going down the line, whether it will be like charged, or it will be like it will become licensed or something like that. So I actually got in touch with Katalon team, and I had this question because this was a very common question when I started creating videos on Catalan Studio. A lot of my viewers and my subscribers asked me this question, that this looks like a very cool tool, a lot of features, and we have not seen this kind of a tool freely available. So is it like just a trial version and after some time they will start charging or something else? I got in touch with the Catalan team and asked the same question, and they said that it is going to be free for lifetime. We are not going to charge for it, but yes, it's free, but not open source.
Cool. So I know you don't work for Catalan Studios, but like I said, I've seen you've been using it for a while, and you have talked to them a bit. Do they offer premium services? What's their angle here? I guess they must offer support or something at a premium.
Yes, Joe. So they offer premium services. Earlier, they had a support email, which was support@catalan.com. And when I started working with this tool, it was like whenever there was an issue, you could send an email to this particular email ID and you will receive a response like within 24 hours. As of now, there is a documentation page, and then there is a support channel online available. And most of the support comes from there. And then there is a premium services as well that they charge for. There is one of the questions on the FAQ sites which says, do you offer test automation services? So they have actually given a contact form for that. So, maybe I can answer related to that, because somebody has to contact them and then they will reply like what exactly, they do and they will charge for.
So I guess my concern is when I work for a large company, sometimes freemium things, there's certain things in the licensing that makes it so you can't really use it. And also when you download it, you have to agree to a license. If you're working in a large team across multiple locations, are you able to check Catalan Studio code into, say, your repository, version control repository, and use it just like you would Selenium?
Yes, good question, Joe. So, of course, when we work at an enterprise level, this is a concern that how exactly a group of people will work on the same code and the same framework. So Catalan Studio has addressed that issue, and they have inbuilt integration with Git, so you can always have a GitHub repository and put all your code and framework libraries there, and then a group of people can work on that. And even if the people do not have a lot of experience with version control system, Catalan Studio has made it really easy, because they have these icons right available on their UI from where you can clone, pull, and push, and do all kind of version controlling and sharing with the group. So I think that thing they have already addressed right from the beginning.
Oh, so interesting. So do you think it makes it easier for people to collaborate in this environment using Catalan Studio with that type of model?
Yeah, of course, because what I believe is using Catalan Studio, in case we are working with a lot of people and a group is working on the same project or the same framework, the only thing they require is to have Catalan Studio downloaded on their workstations, and then they can put their code into a repository, and then everyone can do a clone, and then can do a pull, and then work on their machines, and then push it, and then can collaborate and merge. So I believe if it follows the same Git conventions, so it should be pretty easy to collaborate within a team.
Are there any debugging features that they've added that makes it easier to debug test automation tests when they fail, or reporting?
Yes, they have a debugging feature. They have, you can actually create breakpoints and then debug your test case, and it is something similar to what we do in Eclipse because it's built over Eclipse SDK. So those debugging features are like inbuilt. Along with that, the reporting and the information that we get, the logs that we get, they are like very intuitive. So there are a lot of filters available in the log, so you can filter out the logs, the only the warnings. If you want to see only the failed steps, all these things are there. Then there are some really cool features like you can skip particular steps or skip particular test cases in a test suite. You can also make different test suites run on different browsers parallelly. And then in case you want to make some steps optional, and then you want to make some steps to stop the execution if it fails, all those things are available, and there are just a few clicks, and all these things get active and generated. So that is a cool feature with this tool.
So it sounds awesome. Is this your go-to automation tool now, or do you still use Selenium without using Catalan Studio?
For a lot of enterprise projects, I still use Selenium. And to be frank, I have not used Catalan Studio for an enterprise level project. But yes, a lot of viewers on my channel and the subscribers on my channel have used this tool, and they have found it very useful. So they send me messages and they tell me that they have really found it useful. Plus, if you go to the website of Katalon Studio, you'll find there are a lot of big organizations who are already using it. So there is GE, Accenture, EasyLinks, all these organizations are using this tool. So I believe this is really helping in test automation.
So is there a reason why you're not using it for enterprise companies? Do you not fully trust it, or is it just because companies you work for, I don't know if you're a consultant or something, they just want to use Selenium?
Yes, Joe. So this is like a very new tool in the market, and a lot of people do not know about this tool. That is number one. And then number two is a lot of companies that I work with are very much familiar with Selenium. So they, normally want to go with Selenium and a custom framework. I think this is picking up pace. This tool is picking up pace, and I believe in the coming few months or so there will be a lot of acceptability of this tool enterprise level. So I think this is going to be like really useful, and a lot of enterprise level projects will be using this tool.
Very cool. So Raghav, you mentioned Life Charger. Can you give us an example of what you post on Life Charger? Like, can you have any motivational quotes that actually apply to automation engineers?
A general advice that I will give to all automation testers or engineers is that a lot of people send me messages saying that they do not have a lot of experience in automation, or they do not have a lot of programming experience or programming background, and they are like very reluctant to start with automation. And it's like I've seen this in I get like one or two messages almost every week about this. So what I just want to say about this is there's always something that we start for the first time, and it is like what I started. So although I was trained into Java developer, but that was for a very, very brief period, and it was like I had not done much on Java, and then I started with testing. And most of the things is I have learned while working on the projects, or while going through tutorials and then learning myself. So I think that you should take one step at a time and go step by step. And there's nothing that you cannot learn or you cannot achieve. So I believe that whatever is that you want to start doing or start learning, just take the first step today. It may be a very small step. Do not worry about that. You may fail one time or several times. Do not worry. Just take the step. Be bold. Be confident. And after some time, you will reach somewhere. So that's for sure. So that's what I just want to share with everyone.
I know a lot of times when people writing their test suite, they don't think about running them in parallel. And when they get to that point, they usually have to do a lot of refactoring to make sure there's no issues when they do run in parallel. So you did mention that Catalan Studio does offer some sort of parallelization functionality. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, a very good question, Joe. So this is true. Like whenever we want to run, test cases in parallel, we often face a lot of challenges, and there are features within the frameworks, and we can code for it. But I have seen that even experienced people face challenges while writing a code for such features like running multiple test cases in parallel, and that too with different browsers. So this is one thing that Katalon Studio has done very well, and I was really impressed by this feature. And in this tool, what you can do is you can put your test cases into test suites. So for example, you have 5 test cases. You can put 2 test cases in one suite, and then the third one in a second suite, and the rest in a third suite. And this can be done in any logical way. So sometimes people do this classification based on their modules of the application. For example, a login module will be a separate suite, and then the user creation module can be a different suite. Sometimes people also do this based on the testing modules. For example, a smoke testing suite, and then a regression testing suite, and a sanity testing suite. So whatever logical way you can group those test cases into suites. And then there is a test suite collection runner in Katalon Studio, which can have multiple test suites. So you can add all your test suites into a collection runner, and then you can run your test suites in parallel. Plus, you can also select the browser on which you want to run. So for example, you want to run the first suite on Chrome, the second one on Firefox, and the third one on IE, and all will run at the same time in parallel. The other thing that you can do is, for example, you want to run the same test suite, but you want to test on different browsers. So you can add the test suite 3 times in the test suite collection, and you can say the first suite should run on Chrome, the second one on Firefox, and the third one on IE. So the same test suite will run in parallel on 3 different browsers. So that is a very cool feature with Katalon Studio.
Okay, Raghav, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give someone to improve their Catalan Studio test automation efforts? And let us know the best way to find or contact you.
So one piece of advice, a very generic advice that I want to give to anybody using Katalon Studio or even using some custom frameworks is that irrespective of the tool or the framework you are using, always have a very structured way of creating your frameworks, and always create your test cases which are like modular in nature and which are atomic in nature. So by atomic, I mean that your test cases should be an individual entity and should not be dependent on a lot of different components here and there. So if you do that, it will be very useful while you are doing parallel testing, because I have seen this, that when these test cases are not structured properly, or the framework is not structured properly, and it is not very clean modular approach, when you want to go with parallel testing, you always have a lot of difficulties. So I think this is one advice that I want to give to everyone. So you can reach me on my LinkedIn account, which is Raghav Pal, and you can also go to my channel on YouTube, which is Automation Step by Step, or my blog, which is lifecharger.org. So you can email me or send me a message on any of these platforms, and I see all my messages and I reply to all.
Thank you, Raghav, for your automation awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testtalks.com/204. And while you're there, make sure to click on the sign up for free trial link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about Sauce Labs' awesome products and services. And while you're there, make sure to click on the AI Summit Guild banner to register for the first ever online conference dedicated 100% to just AI automation and testing. You don't want to miss it. It's happening May 30th. Go to AISummitGuild.com. So that's it for this episode of Test Talks. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed with creating automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Talks podcast. Head on over to www.testtalks.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and other automation awesomeness.